What's going on, everybody? I am back with another Prize Picks NBA player props video. This one, going to be breaking it down, giving you guys 5 picks to get you winning some money over here on Prize Picks. As always, guys, if you enjoy this content, would be greatly appreciated if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Last video, we were able to get up over 200 likes. Let's do it again. Let's run it back. Let's go 5-0. We already got one 5-0 ticket out of the way already in these playing games. Looking to make it a second one. Last time out, we got burnt by that blowout with Charlotte not really showing up, unfortunately. But hey, what are you going to do? We're back one night. We already 10x our money, one ticket. Stick to that bankroll. Don't get too crazy putting in any more money. And we're going to be profitable throughout this NBA playoffs. I can promise you that much. So if you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, would highly recommend you do so. It is a player props website where you can win money off of picking the over and under on things like players, points, assists, rebounds, assists, fantasy score, three-pointers made, etc. Go ahead and use that promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match deposit up to $100 today. Again, that is code KJK DFS. Lock that in. Get that free money. Start winning some money over here on Prize Picks with these picks today, guys. So, without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to go game by game. As always, we only got 2 games, but it's a playing game. It is a must-win for both teams. The winners will advance to the playoffs and earn the 8th seed. So, obviously, big games. Stars are going to be relied on heavily. Minutes are going to be solidified. I love that. I think we can take advantage. I've been going with fantasy points a lot during these playoffs, and if you're new to the content, I've been getting constant questions. Why don't you go with points, or why don't you go with this, or why don't you go with that? My answer is very simple. The upside for scoring on NBA when these guys are playing massive minutes is great, considering there's 3 points for blocks and steals. Literally, just them being on the floor alone and recording, 2 to 3 blocks or steals is an automatic, 3 points per block and steal. So I want to be targeting guys that are on the floor for massive minutes and are capable of racking up those blocks and steals and those other stats. We don't even have to rely on them scoring. Maybe they have a bad scoring game, but they rack up a ton of assists, a ton of rebounds, and a ton of blocks and steals. It's still going to get us there in the scoring format. So I keep getting that question. That's your answer, guys. We have players that are going to play massive minutes. We have players that I'm picking that produce at a high fantasy point per minute level. If you're new to NBA DFS or you don't know what fantasy or how it works, these guys have calculated fantasy points per minute that they produce, and I am very familiar with them, and I'm going to be taking advantage. So that's a little explanation as to why we're going to be going with the fantasy score. And the first game we're going to be talking about is the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's a 223 over-under. It's a 2-point spread in favor of the Atlanta Hawks, so it is expected to stay close. It is expected to be the faster, up-tempo game environment of the 2 games here. And the first team I want to talk about is the Atlanta Hawks. And the guy that I want to talk about is Mr. Clint Capella. We targeted Clint Capella last time out. His fantasy score put up a massive fantasy score, and I'm expecting the same here tonight. They've only got his fantasy score set at 35. He put up 53 in that game environment, and I don't think that was an outlier, guys. I mean, this guy is a legitimate fantasy point per minute beast on the season, putting up 1.18 Prize Picks fantasy points per minute. So, I mean, the guy, he's going to be out there on the floor for massive minutes. And the great news is, the second round of games, we already got a sneak peek of what these rotations are going to look like. We know. We know the guys that these guys are really going to want to rely on. Looking at the Atlanta Hawks and who they went with in that Hornets game, keep in mind, this game turned into a blowout. So, some of these guys didn't even play the allotment of minutes that I'm expecting them to play tonight. Looking at Clint Capella, he played 29 minutes, and then they pulled him from that game. If it was a close game, I think he would have got up there in the mid-30s. And if he gets up there in the mid-30s at a 1.18 fantasy point per minute clip, you do the math. He's probably going to surpass this line, and he will rack up the blocks and steals. Last game out, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Exactly what I just talked about, guys. You get 3 points for every one of those. That's a big deal, and Clint Capella is the type of guy that can do that. Love the over 35 fantasy score for Clint Capella tonight. Second on the list, we're going to be going over to the other side of this game, and we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, another guy that played massive minutes in his game last time out. We're going to be talking about Darius Garland. We're going to be taking the over 42 fantasy score for Darius Garland. I liked the over on him last time out as well. His line was set at 42 then as well. Just barely got us there, but he had a lot of turnovers in that game. That made it a lot closer than it should have been, unfortunately. But the fact of the matter is, once again, a guy that's going to be on the floor for massive minutes. We already got a sneak peek of what they're going to roll Garland out there for. Looking at the rotations last time for Cleveland, I am a little concerned about some of the bigs in Cleveland because the return of Jarrett Allen or the possible return of Jarrett Allen, he's listed as questionable, could seriously have an impact on some of the bigs in the rotations and the usage that they get. So I'm going to be staying away from the bigs personally, but Darius Garland, if Jarrett Allen comes back, that's not going to hurt him at all. If anything, that could just help him even more. And once again, a guy that's going to play massive minutes. He played 39 minutes last game. in a game where he had 6 turnovers, barely got us there, but I mean, the guy had 2 steals. Once again, that's an automatic 6 points to go along with his 34 points, his 5 assists. We've seen him generate a lot more assists than that at times as well. So I like the over Darius Garland, and then to cap things off as far as his permanent production, putting up 1.09 Prizepicks fantasy points per minute on the season. 1.09 if he plays 40 minutes. You do the math, that's more than 42 fantasy points. And I expect these guys' permanent production to even go up more in the playoffs. Just the heavy usage guys that are relied on. Naturally, they're going to play more minutes. They're going to be relied on more. I like the over 42 fantasy score for Darius Garland. Number 3, we're going to be kicking on over to the New Orleans Pelicans Los Angeles Clippers game. This game comes with a 215.5 over-under. Not the fastest-paced game in the world, but a 215.5 over-under. But once again, very solidified minutes for a few select individuals in this game that I want to be targeting. And the first team that I want to target is the New Orleans Pelicans. And I want to talk about Mr. Brandon Ingram. I think his fantasy score is too low over here on Prizepicks. They've got it set at 39. He dealt with some foul trouble last game and got us 38.5 fantasy score. Keep in mind, he was dealing with foul trouble. I don't think he played the allotment of minutes that I expect him to play tonight if he can avoid foul trouble. Hopefully that doesn't happen again, of course. That would be a real bummer. But if he does play his full allotment of minutes that I'm expecting him to, and keep in mind, this is win or go home now. It was last game out, but I mean, this is it. You win or you go to the win and go to the playoffs, or you don't. So he had 4 fouls, only played 30 minutes. I'm expecting him to ramp that up into the mid to upper 30s in this one. And he barely missed his line last time out. I expect he's able to surpass this line pretty easily, 39 fantasy score. Looking at his permanent production on the season, he put up 1.13 Prizepicks fantasy points per minute. So a really great fantasy point per minute producer. He will get you those blocks and steals, of course, as I keep touching on. And I do like the over 39 fantasy score for Brandon Ingram. And second, I do like targeting his teammate, another guy that's a good fantasy point producer, and I think there's some value on his fantasy score line over here on Prizepicks, and that's going to be Jonas Valanciunas. JV is a guy that's just a phenomenal fantasy point per minute producer. He always has been. It's really just a minutes thing for him, but now that it's in the playoffs, we don't have to worry about that, thank God. He's putting up 1.22 Prizepicks fantasy points per minute. Really good stuff. A 38 fantasy score is too low. He just went out there and put up 49 last time. I don't think that's a coincidence. Once again, a guy that I expect to play massive minutes. He played 36 minutes last time out. Could see even more in this game possibly, with the game, being their do-or-die game to advance in the playoffs. And once again, just a fantastic fantasy point per minute producer. He will get you the blocks and steals as well. Last time out, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Definitely like targeting him. And I do like JV and Brandon Ingram over CJ McCollum. They actually do produce at a higher rate on a fantasy point per minute rate rather than CJ McCollum. As far as this fantasy scoring is concerned, DraftKings, I know, is a little bit of different fantasy scoring. Prizepicks fantasy scoring is most relatable to FanDuel. So I do prefer Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas. That's why I'm leaning those guys. And lastly, we're going to be running it back on the other side with the same guy we went with last time. That's going to play massive minutes for the LA Clippers. And you're probably guessing who it's going to be, their main stud. But we'll go ahead and just pull up the game logs just so we can show you some proof on the screen of this guy getting massive minutes. It's the number 1 guy on the LA Clippers. It's the go-to guy. It's Paul George. Last time out, he played 41 minutes, 34 points, 3 turnovers, 3 steals, though. Once again, a guy that's going to rack up those steals for you. 7 rebounds, 5 assists. The guy did it all. He really shot terribly in the first half, too. 41 minutes, though. And I like the over 50 fantasy score for Paul George tonight, once again. Put up 55 last time. I think we're going to see some consistent mid-50s to 60-plus fantasy score output out of Paul George if they're able to stay in these playoffs. So those are my 5 picks to get you winning some money over here on Prizepicks. As always, guys, if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Check out the premium content packages as well down below in the description if you want to check out. I do offer MLB packages as well, and I will have some MLB Prizepicks picks. Yesterday we went 4-0 on those, who possibly could have gone 5-0 if not for Contreras getting scratched. So check that out too. But wishing you guys all the best of luck on your Prizepicks picks tonight, and we will see you in the next one.